Don't drink and go to meetings, and listen to everything that you possibly can and take it for what it's worth, and expect coincidences, because that's God's way of breaking his anonymity.
I heard it through the grapevine.
Welcome. It's the AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour, featuring the collected voices of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm Sam, an alcoholic in Palm Springs, California.
And I'm Don, an alcoholic in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Don!
Sammy!
Tell me something. Why don't you ever put in weird cities for your part of the introduction?
Greensboro. I guess I could put Greensburger.
Greensburger.
I'm a Greensburger because I'm in the burg of Greensboro.
Oh, God.
Sam, I met someone who didn't know that you can listen to podcasts for free.
No.
I know. He wanted to hear the General Service Office's new podcast, Our Primary Purpose. So he subscribed to a streaming service. And while that's one way to get it, you can also listen to it for free in multiple different ways. And it occurred to me that a lot of our listeners, even though they're listening to the podcast, don't know all the different ways that you can listen to a podcast.
There are quite a few. You can listen to it on our website, of course, at aagrapevine.org/podcast, or on our YouTube channel. You can also use a dedicated podcast app or a streaming service like Spotify or Audible.
Those are the three main ways.
Insofar as the website, on our website, there's a list of all the episodes. You just click and play, and you can also get to the Grapevine podcast from within the Grapevine app.
And the Grapevine app sends you to the website.
In your phone, though.
Yeah, on your phone, and it will send you to the website to listen to the podcast.
And then for dedicated podcast apps, popular options include Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, and Overcast. These are just a few of them. These apps are specifically designed for podcast listening and offer features like automatic downloading, smart playback, and episode organization.
Podcast apps on your smartphone, it's kind of the way that podcasts got started. They actually started on the iPod, and hence the name podcast.
What's an iPod?
Yeah. And then when the iPhone came out, iPods went away.
And then more smartphones came out, and we got these apps.
And they automatically go and collect the podcast for you.
Yeah, it's kind of like, think of it as like email for a podcast, email for listening.
Yeah.
You know, streaming services, there's several out there, but the big ones are Spotify, Audible, and Amazon Music. And these do require a subscription fee.
I think with Spotify, you can listen to some without paying the subscription.
Well, and the other thing that shows up is that you have to create an account with these.
Yes. And it's free on one of the apps, though you do have to download an app. I use a dedicated podcast app. This is the way I got started with podcasts. It's the main way I listen. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I like it because you can subscribe. The podcast shows up automatically, and you can create a playlist and all those kinds of things. What's the main way you listen to podcasts, Sam?
I listen on a dedicated app on my phone, and then generally play it through my car on Monday mornings as I'm heading off to a client.
Yeah. You can play it through the car speakers.
That's it. You know, there's another way you can listen to, and that's on smart speakers. You can just tell your speaker to play the AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour podcast. Yeah, that's a mouthful, but you can tell it to do that, and it'll do it. And now it might ask you, what platform and offer you some options, but generally it'll just play it.
So it's like, Siri, play the AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour podcast.
Is she doing it?
No, but she's doing it all over the world.
All over the world. Alexa, play the AA Grapevine Half-Hour Variety Hour podcast. And mine's doing it on a speaker in another room.
There you go.
Alexa,
Sam,
stop playing in Sam's bathroom.
Hey, Google.
Chris is going to get us. We have so much branding in this thing. Thank God we're hitting them all. We're not endorsing anything here.
We're trying to hit them all because we're not endorsing any of them. These are just all the options that are out there. Sam, who's our guest today?
Don, today we welcome Jamie H. from Nantucket, Massachusetts.
But first, the news.
Listen to playlists of members' AA stories on the AA Grapevine YouTube channel. Get inspiration for your recovery, then share your own story. Playlists include Sober Women, the Grapevine WIPA World Tour, that's young people in AA, Blessed, Voices of Men in AA, Willingness, Coming In, A New Life. There are also ASL and Spanish playlists. Search AA Grapevine on YouTube.
What are the Grapevine's most popular books? Emotional Sobriety 1 and 2. Both are filled with experiences by sober AA members, many with long-term sobriety, about the positive transformations we can achieve by practicing the principles of the program in all aspects of our lives. The stories show how the rewards are serenity, emotional balance, and an increased joy for living. Visit aagrapevine.org/books.
Hi, my name's Jamie. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is October 19th, 1987, and I currently am living in Nantucket, Massachusetts, and we have several meetings here, and the meeting that is my home group is the Saturday night meeting at Father Griffin Hall on Cherry Street. So if you're ever here, stop by and say hi.
Jamie, you got sober in 1987, and you still go to AA meetings?
Yeah. Not as often as I did when I first started. I did 42 meetings in 13 days. Yeah, that was pretty nuts. But I go at least once a week now, possibly twice. I do a lot of sponsorships, so I'm on the phone at least an hour a day over the course of the week. I spend a fair amount of my time working on recovery issues, if not going to meetings.
Well, and I know another way that you do too, because it's how you and I got to know each other so well. And that was you were out here in Palm Springs, and we took a panel to a local treatment center.
Yes.
And
yes,
when I picked you up, and we got to have a good long conversation going to and from that place.
Yeah, I have a home in Palm Springs, and was really excited, actually, and surprised to find a set of meetings out there that are really quite unique. And it's a meeting called Shipwreck, which, as I understand it, is a great young men's meeting with some older geezers like myself sprinkled in there. And it's rather informal. I mean, when it comes to the recovery part, the sharing, there's very rigorous, must stand at the front of the room, must share your AA date. There's a variety of ways that it is pretty rigorous. On the other hand, it's like a Rocky Horror Picture Show meeting in a lot of respects. It was the kind of meeting that had I noticed this maybe in 77, I might have gotten sober a few years earlier instead of 87. It's a great, great, great meeting. And there's a lot of heart, tremendous amount of heart. I lost it in tears one night when I got back from the meeting, just about how beautiful that aspect of it was. It's lighthearted, and then when the message kicks in, it's all really strong and very earnest.
Fun and earnest. That's a great combination. Well, I'm going to ask the question that I had when I was new, and I heard that I needed to go to a meeting every day, which sounded like, well, this is a little obsessive. And, I was told, don't you drink every day?
One day at a time was something that I already knew before I got sober, that there was no guarantees. Rehabilitation might help somebody stay away from the drink on a daily basis, but there was always the tremendous risk of going back to it. And so when I first got sober, and the sponsor that I had actually, I tried to complicate my life with a lot of opinions at the time. And his thing was, just don't drink, go to meetings. The rest of it will manage. But you got to not drink, and you got to go to meetings. And I expect to see you at a meeting every day, and I expect to hear from you that night. And he was pretty stern about that.
Did you get this fella early in your recovery?
Yes, I got him in about the third week. I asked him in the first week, and he blew me off, which actually might have been a smart move, because it took me a little while to understand even the rudiments of humility to the point that I shut the f*** up. And I would have driven him nuts. And also, one of the things that he might have known about a personality like mine is if you say no to somebody, they're going to work 3 times harder to get a yes out of you.
Yeah.
That's applied in some various areas in I'm sure it has for you guys too.
Yeah.
When he blew me off, I was stunned. And about 2, 3 weeks later, he saw me and he said, you asked me before, but, I needed to see how you were doing and see whether you were serious or not. And yeah, you just looks like you're serious. So let's go. And I realized, kind of somewhere along the line, that there were a couple of times of panic attacks. So anyway, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd be all shook up. And I told him about this. I've had this with my sponsees over the years. Where, like, you say, well, this might work. No, I don't know. It's different. Okay, it's different. Yeah, no, yeah, well, no, you might try this out. You might think of it this way. No. It's like, well, and I remember saying something that Dan might have said to somebody. He didn't say it to me, but he said to someone. I said to one of my guys. I said, if you're so screwed up, how the hell do you know how screwed up you actually are? If your judgment is that impaired that you're coming to me for answers on this, that, and the other thing, where the hell do you get the idea that you're in a probative position to be argumentative about it?
Yes. I did that with my sponsor, and I was complaining, and he said, Don, you don't have to do it. You can go drink. And I was going, no.
That was another way of doing it. Now, in New York, with the, the kind of like the self-imposed intelligentsia that we all like to carry around with ourselves, we ain't too country in New York. So, we have a more complicated way of expressing exactly the same thing. But I called him up 4 times in a row saying that I was having a panic attack. And then I would talk to him later in the day, and he would give me suggestions, and I would be like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't get it. And he eventually frustrated him. And so I called him up one day and I said, I'm having a panic attack and I hate this. And he said, I'm so sick of hearing that you hate it. Why don't you try loving it for a change and see what the hell happens? The next morning, I woke up and I was having another one of these episodes. Something in me said, oh, wow, this is happening. Let's take a look at this.
Acceptance.
Exactly. That was just enough of a chink in the armor for me to take perhaps a broader view, or at least I think the word is eidetic, a suspended disbelief, is in the philosophical sense of just like taking a little bit of a step away from I hate this. Like it was more like, oh, it's happening. And yes, that was enough to crack it.
Wow.
That put a dent in it. And so I called him up. I said, you know what? I think I understand what you mean. I don't know if I would have put it that way. He said, I put it the way I put it. And
you got to argue, though.
Exactly. He says, it worked. Did it work? I said, yeah. He said, all right, good. Shut up. On the other hand, he was very big on some parts of the spirituality aspects of it that I had a hard time with coming in, but he was big on Emmett Fox, who was a guy that isn't spoken of very much these days. But Emmett Fox wrote really beautiful philosophical treatises on the Sermon on the Mount and some other things from a small C Christian point of view, not from a Bible thumper or even from very much a religious point of view, but just from a philosophy for living. And he was big on that. And as I struggled with the third step, having grown up a gay kid, I didn't want anything to do with any of the religions. All wanted me dead. And I just didn't want anything to do with them. I came from a relatively liberal Protestant background. One of the easiest ways that I found with my sponsees, I don't know if this is worth including in the podcast or not.
It is. I was going to ask the question, but you went right to it.
I have difficult sponsees who have the same problem. And I'll wait until they're about 50, 60 days in, right? Because they will. If they're scared enough, they'll stick that long. They'll be like, I don't get the God thing. And I say, well, you can make up whatever you want. And by the way, are you pretty sure your life was before you came in here? And he says, yeah. I said, okay, so you got number one. Do you think this is working for you? You keep coming around. It must be doing something for you. Good. Yes. Okay. All right. Now you got number two. Now you're going to commit? And usually it's impossible to say no. At which point I say, okay, now you got 3.
I think that's what they did in the beginning.
I think so too.
They just put so much pressure, and it was like a social situation. And they'll talk about somebody gave a really good third step. I'm reading the history of Bill and Bob in the early days in Akron. And I think that's exactly a lot of it. It was like the question was put and you're in a social situation and you just can't say no.
Yeah, Keith. And well, the thing was, they're coming off of Oxford Group too, which was something that was really, really controversial because these guys weren't saints, and they were very clear that and by the way, if they had been saints, I'd be dead.
Yeah.
They put God in there because they knew that there was a spirit that was doing something. I avoid it with the guys that I know are not going to hear it because it's not my job to inform them about the nomenclature. It's to me to help them understand. And if I can help them understand, you're already there. You do believe that this is keeping you sober. We can see it. I lean a lot on the third step prayer in that when I'm sponsoring, because rather than get tangled up in the, made a decision to turn our will and whatnot, I look at the purposeful aspect of it, which was something, again, that Dan taught me when we were working through the third step and starting to work towards the fourth and starting to begin to talk about taking inventory. He said, "What do you want out of this?" And I said, "I want to be a good person." No, I don't want to hear that. He said, "I want you to memorize the third step prayer."
Jamie, let me read the third step prayer.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondages of self that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. I had a big problem with that prayer, so I want to hear how you...
One of the things that we talked about, and no offense, but it happened, where it's my victory. I mean, I heard that, and my sponsor was like, "I want you to memorize this thing verbatim, and by the way, it says God at the beginning, and it never says it again." But I would rewrite it, and all of my sponsees have.
And I did too.
I did too.
Yeah, and I had to learn it verbatim, because he wasn't going to let me off the hook to do it any other way. The take away my difficulties only, is implicit in there, only to show somebody else, to bear witness, to somebody that I might help. He said, "Yeah, helpful, useful, yeah, that I'm down with." He said, "I'm totally down with useful and helpful, and there's a variety of ways that can happen." And then he said something I'll never forget. He says, "We're not trying to redecorate your soul. We're not trying to gentrify your inner monologue. We're trying to help each other and to be as helpful and as useful as you can." And that's one of the reasons to be as humble as you can be, because if you're not humble, you're going to rewrite it, and you're also not going to be hearing very well what's going on around you.
I memorized the third step prayer when I reset my date in 2012 and started hanging out with a bunch of guys who we closed the meeting with it. And it was one of those things that I started saying it. That was the prayer that I said in the mornings when I got up. And I don't even know what my rewritten version was. I don't even know where it is.
Another one of the things that informed me as I was getting sober, that must we mean what we say? You got to show up, and that fear is treacherous.
I think it's interesting that I became accountable. The longer that I've been sober, the more accountable I've been. And to not let fear block me from moving forward. And so if I say something, I have to be accountable. I have to show up.
Thank you so much for sitting down chatting with us. I knew this was going to be fun.
Thanks, Jimmy. It's time for listener feedback.
Hi there, my name is Julia and I'm an alcoholic. You bring freshness and cheer every week to my sobriety and to the sobriety of my sponsees, actually. So thank you. I want to add to the stories of Anonymity and kids. My kids were 3 and 5 when I was celebrating 18 years of sobriety. I told them that after I picked them up from kindergarten, we were going to celebrate because I was having a party. So I picked them up, and the little one shot into my arms, and all the parents were there saying, Mommy, today is your 18th birthday sobriety. You haven't drank for 18 years, and we're going to celebrate. And there was a silence, and the parents looked, and then everyone went on as if nothing had happened. I was like, yeah, I'm 18 years sober today, indeed. And so it wasn't really a break of anonymity, but it was so sweet. And the other one is, then he was 9 years old. It's always the second one, who was, I guess, less discreet, or more enthusiastic about his mom being in AA. He was 9 years old, and the teachers told them on a Monday, okay, this week is going to be addiction week. We're going to learn everything about addiction. My son's hand shot in the air, and he's like, me. My mom, she's an alcoholic. She's an addict. And she's also a food addict. She can tell you everything about addiction. And she even swallowed a fork, which is true, in my food addiction. And the teacher called me, just like your guest in the podcast, and say, I'm a little worried about your son. He said that you were an alcoholic. I think he's lying. I'm very concerned. And I said, oh, no worries. No, I am an alcoholic. I'm a sober alcoholic. And also I'm an addict. But, I'm recovered. And if you want, we can help you with the addiction week. And she was really happy. And we came, 3 of us. And the kids were super interested. And the teacher was quite impressed. And Jack was very proud of his mom. And this is how that situation resolved. The other one is when they enter puberty. They don't know anything else than their mom being an alcoholic, very engaged in AA. So when they were asleep over, when they're adolescents, what do your parents do? And he was like, yeah, my mom is in AA. It's like, I thought that was my job. It's like, and then they would come home saying, Mommy, do you have another job except AA? And I was like, yeah, I have another job. Why did the parents ask you? Yeah. And they started to realize that it's not normal, not something you necessarily say. Yeah, my mom is an alcoholic and she's in AA, because people don't know. And so it was a funny time, this adolescent time, where they also came of age with their mommy's sobriety, I guess. So that's a long message, but I love the podcast, and I'm sending warm greetings to all the alcoholics who are listening. Bye.
Oh, thank you, Julia. Warm greetings to you as well. What wonderful stories you have there. Thanks for taking the time and the effort to give us a call. Folks, we want to hear from you. Call 212-870-3418 and leave us a message.
The Grapevine and Lavinia apps are now available for both iOS and Android phones.
To get yours, go to the App Store on your phone and search for AA Grapevine or Lavinia.
Wits End was originally called Ham on Rye. Here's a bit of AA history from the Grapevine, April 2007.
Ham on Rye new name contest announcements. Thank you all. We received wonderful submissions. We laughed, we chuckled, we groaned, and we giggled. After much thought and musing, we've selected At Wits End to grace the Grapevine's humor section. Apparently, many of you liked the double pun on wit. The puns we love to laugh at and the conditions some of us find ourselves in, when it feels like we've lost everything but our sense of humor, and sometimes even that. And of course, we liked that it was the name for Bill W.'s study at his home, Stepping Stones. We hope you like it too. Thanks to everyone who participated. Contest winners, Art C., Elise M., Greg R., and Lisa F.
I'm at the very wit's end. A drunk with a terrible hangover strolled into a bar, seated himself shakily on a stool, and asked for something to drink in a hurry. When the bartender began to reel off suggestions, the drunk cut in.
Oh, just give me something tall and cool and full of gin.
Sir, you happen to be talking about the woman I love.
It's really not that funny. Thanks for joining us. The AA Grapevine Half Hour Variety Hour is posted every Monday and is produced by AA Grapevine, Inc. We don't speak for AA as a whole. We share the experience, strength, and hope of members to help others recover from alcoholism. All things Grapevine are available at aagrapevine.org, including our app and how to get in touch with us. Find us on Instagram and YouTube. If you want to know more about AA, visit aa.org or search online for Alcoholics Anonymous and your city.